Another incident. The recruits for jihad from the south would come into Medina, and they would gather there, ثم يعقد الرايات, and then he would appoint them to their specific armies and give them their banners. So the meeting place, the congregating place was Medina. So you'd have all of these tribesmen coming into Medina. And their character was different than the people of Medina. See, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum who spent time with the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam could see it in their manners. Their conduct, their behavior is different. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam changed their life. And the longer a person would spend with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more different the character would become. But now these recruits are new Muslims. Some of them became Muslim during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but many of them have only met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam very briefly. See, we have this, there are a lot of misnomers that we have about our Islamic history. And we think that the early futuhat were all done by the Sahaba. And that's not correct. I mean, when you look at the number of Sahaba that spent the most time with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they are Muhajirin, who were from Mecca. How many Muhajirin do you think there were? The Muslims who embraced Islam in Mecca, the foundation of Islam, the ones that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent the most time with, how many were they? A little over 100. That's all. Al-Muhajirun are a little over 100. We're not talking in thousands. But each one of them is equal to an ummah. Al-Ansar were more. Al-Ansar were a few hundred. The Sahaba who were with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Bay'at al-Ridwan were 1,400. The ones who attended Hajj with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were 90,000. And the number of Sahaba who prayed janazah on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is 124,000. Now, our scholars consider a Sahabi to be anyone who saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a Muslim. Anybody who saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a Muslim is a Sahabi. So all what is needed to qualify as a Sahabi is to get a glimpse of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when you are a Muslim. Because, for example, if a mushrik sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and then they become Muslim later, what are they considered? But anyway, the view is that as long as you saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even as a child, you are a Sahabi. So many of these Sahaba didn't really spend a lot of time with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the 90,000 who were in Hajjat al-Wada', they just met him for Hajj and then they left. Everybody went back to their home. So it was the people who were in Medina that were affected by the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the most. So these new recruits were coming into Medina. Some of them were rude, some of them were harsh. So there were some problems going on in Medina, and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were being patient, and they were taking this. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu was sensing the discomfort of the Sahaba. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum are seeing all of these people coming to Medina with different behavior. Some of them are unruly, and they haven't gone through the tarbiyah yet. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he gathers all of the Sahaba, and he goes on the minbar. And he says, نشدتك الله امرأ مسلما سمع نشدي لما كف عن هؤلاء القوم ومن رأى لي عليه حقا فليحتمل ضرب ألسنتهم وعجلة يكرهها منهم ما لم يبلغ ذلك الحد. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, I ask you in the name of Allah to be patient with these people. And if their tongues are sharp, not to respond back to them. And if they abuse any one of you, be patient and don't respond back. As long as what they have done doesn't reach to the level of a had, a crime that is punishable in Sharia. Overlook their mistakes. And then he said, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مُهْلِكٌ بِهَؤُلَاءِ أَعْدَاؤُنَا جُمُوعُ هِرَقْلَ وَالرُّومِ وَإِنَّمَا هُمْ إِخْوَانُكُمْ فإن كانت منهم عجلة على أحد منكم فليحتمل ذلك ألم يكن ذلك أصوب في الرأي وخيرا في المعاد من أن ينتصر منهم. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, because these are the men whom Allah Azza wa Jal will use to destroy Heraclius and the Romans. So isn't it appropriate for us to be patient and overlook their mistakes? So the Muslims said yes. بلى. قال فإنهم إخوانكم في الدين وأنصاركم على الأعداء ولهم عليكم حق فاحتملوا ذلك منهم ثم نزل من المنبر. The Muslims said yes. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, these are your brothers in religion and they are your supporters against your enemies, and you have some duties towards them, so be patient with them. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, you can see the wisdom behind this. These are people who didn't go through tarbiyah yet, but they are going to be the foundation of the Muslim armies. The number of the Sahaba, as I told you, is very few. It's very small in number. They are going to fill all of the leadership positions. But the foot soldiers are all going to be from these recruits. And they haven't been through the tarbiyah yet. However, since they are going to be participating in Dhurwat Sanam al-Islam, the highest thing in Islam, which is fighting fi Sabilillah Azza wa Jal, therefore, we should overlook their flaws and mistakes. And this is a nasiha that holds true all the time. If someone is practicing a very noble deed in Islam, and they make some mistakes, but they are benefiting the ummah greatly, then one needs to be forgiving with such a person or people. Now, especially in the context of war, soldiers, after fighting for a very long time, tend to develop some negative attributes. The hearts could become harsh. A soldier could turn ruthless after a while. And that is something that goes along with fighting. It's something that happens if a person spends a lot of time in that area. And many of these recruits were tribal warriors. I mean, it's not like this is the first time they're going to be fighting. I mean, they've been fighting for all of their life. And these are the people who tend to respond first to the call of jihad. So when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu was asking for recruits to come from Yemen, I mean, who would you expect to come? The strong men, the fighters, would show up, while the soft ones would stay behind. And the soft ones that tend to be better on the manners side are not going to show up for this. You're going to have the warriors who will come and respond to the call of fighting fi Sabilillah. So they tended to have a very harsh character that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum did not like. I mean, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum represented the perfection. I mean, they weren't strong in one area and weak in another. They had the ability to combine between both, having rahmah with the believers and being harsh against the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jal. They represented the perfection in that. But now you had all of these new recruits coming into Medina. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu was saying, don't turn them away. Don't be strict with them. Loosen the rules a little bit. Why? Because we have a greater cause. Because these are the ones who will break down the obstacles of da'wah in the Roman Empire. It will be because of them that Islam will spread to other people. Give them time. Give them a chance to mix with you, to learn from you, and they will change. Because by accompanying the Sahaba radiallahu anhum in their armies, the characters would be modified. And those unruly personalities would be tamed. Therefore, we can also learn from this, is that with the brothers who are fighting fi sabilillah, one should protect their honor, and one should defend them, and one should make dua for them. And when they make mistakes, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive them and to show them the straight path. Because nobody is perfect. And we should apply the same rule that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu is applying here. We shouldn't be very critical of them.
A few points, final points on the Ghazawat of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Number one, Umar ibn Khattab would command his army generals, the field officers, not to establish the hudud on the soldiers when they are in a state of war. So the hudud are not to be applied when it is a state of war, because someone might defect and join the kuffar, and that is much worse than not having the had applied on them. He would also ask his army officers to be accommodating to some of the men who are helpful in jihad fi sabilillah. However, they might have some mistakes or flaws in their personality or their conduct or their manners. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he, for example, this is a letter that he sent to his leaders. He said, لا يجلدن أمير جيش ولا سرية أحدا حتى يطلع الدرب لئلا يحمله الشيطان على أن يلحق بالكفار. He said, the umara of the armies or the detachments should not lash or flog anyone until they come back to their land, because they might defect to the camp of the kuffar. Because some of the punishments are severe, and the person might have fear and run away and join the kuffar. So one should not help their... It's a general rule. لا تكونوا عونا لإخوانكم على الشيطان. لا تكونوا عونا للشيطان على أخيكم. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, don't help shaitan against your brother. Don't do anything that would help shaitan against your brother. For example, the brother did something wrong, so you became very harsh on the brother. He becomes defensive, he starts arguing, and by doing that, he is siding with shaitan. You see? Or for example, you see someone who had a very dark history, and now they want to repent and they want to join the ranks of the Salihin, and you start making fun of their past and you make fun of them and you give them an impression that they're not good enough, so they say, well, forget about it. I'm not going to join you, I'm going to go back to my old ways. So by doing that, you have helped shaitan against your brother. So one should not help shaitan against a mu'min. For example, one of his army leaders, Salman al-Bahili, Salman bin Rabi' al-Bahili, or Sulaiman bin Rabi' al-Bahili, he had a problem with Tulayh al-Asdi and Amr bin Ma'di Yakrib. Amr bin Ma'di Yakrib and Tulayh al-Asdi are two former murtaddeen. Not only were they murtaddeen, but they were the leaders of al-murtaddeen. Amr bin Ma'di Yakrib in Yemen and Tulayh al-Asdi in Najd. These were the spearheads of the effort of the murtaddeen. So they were the top evildoers. We're not talking about somebody with middle rank. These were the top ranking murtaddeen. And they were men of war. These were skilled fighters with long history of warfare. And because of their pride and skill in fighting, they rebelled against the Khalifa Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Later on, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq showed them the strength and the power of the Islamic Khilafah, so they gave up and they became Muslim once again.